What is education, and why is education important? Is it important? After all, what's the real purpose of getting educated about anything? We so frequently take education and the process for learning in general totally for granted. Not only that, but the ways in which we think. How we've gone about structuring our own consciousness itself has largely remained unchanged for a long, long time. So how do we literally change our minds? Can we reconfigure our own ways of thinking? And if so, how? Join Dr. Joseph Atman, the founder of one of the world's most revolutionary educational centers, Middletree, and award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo for Educate Everyone and explore the mysteries of our own consciousness and the education we implement in order for it to be what it is.
Our guest on this episode of Educate Everyone is Deanna Alsdorf. She's the Community Development Coordinator at Foothill Family Shelter in Upland, California. In this role, she manages all social media and communication platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and Constant Contact. She's also responsible for networking, content creation, marketing fund development, campaigns, planning special events, and representing Foothill Family Shelter at community and networking meetings.
Thank you so much for being here and Educate Everyone with us. You work for Foothill Family Shelter. We love Foothill Family Shelter. Tell people about it because you guys do really, really great work and the kind of work that I think a lot of people associate with some of those larger, more familiar organizations. But you guys really do the kind of work that some of those larger, more commonly known organizations kind of say and aspire to do, but don't really. So tell us about what Foothill Family Shelter is, what you guys do, what your role is there.
Right. Sounds great. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to have this important conversation. My name is Deanna, and I am the Community Development Coordinator at Foothill Family Shelter. And Foothill Family Shelter has been around since 1984. So last year we celebrated our 40th year of service, which was really a milestone year. And to your point, we do that important work in the community that really helps people transition from homelessness into self-stability. And so our approach is a little bit different. We're not just an emergency shelter. We see a lot of programs out there where, they're taking people off of the streets or out of state of homelessness and putting them into these housing projects, which is an important step. But what we found is that does not solve the issue. That does not break the cycle of homelessness that so many people find themselves in. And so we find families in our local community that are just going through a hard time. A lot of times it's maybe they lost a job or maybe they suffered a medical emergency in their family and they just can't afford rent anymore. And we always say that everyone's a paycheck away from a state of suffering, and that's what we see every day. And so those are the families that we accept into our housing program. And it's a tough program. There's a lot of criteria and requirements, but it's all for a reason. We have, financial literacy programs that they have to be a part of. They have to save 50% of their income. They have to attend therapy. And we also offer a lot of different services for the children as well, because we're trying to provide a holistic approach for them to get out of their situation, to empower them and their families to become contributing members to society. And so it's a wonderful program to be a part of. In my role, I'm more on the development and community side, which is great because I get to tell people about this amazing organization that I'm a part of. But, our staff is a team of 6 people and we do the hard work every single day. And it's really that quiet, important work in the community. And it's just a wonderful program to be a part of.
Yeah. And I don't want to denigrate some of those other organizations, as I kind of alluded to at the top of this, but you guys you're really focused in our community, in the community, the direct community that you serve. So you're servicing the Inland Empire. I know all about Foothill Family because that's where I always go to donate. I skip some of those bigger organizations because I think once you get to a certain size, it's just difficult maybe to carry out that original mission. But you guys, again, are really giving right to the families and doing that exact work that you purport to be doing, where I think some of those other larger national organizations, maybe, not to say that they're not still doing worthwhile work.
I know what you mean.
At all, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's well, if I have a choice, and there aren't enough places like Foothill Family, I feel like in communities.
Absolutely.
Because too often you only have that larger conglomerate organization to donate to or work with. So it's amazing that we have that option in the Inland Empire to go and work directly with you all. So what got you involved with Foothill Family?
So my story is a little unique in that Foothill Family Shelter sort of found me. It was meant to be, I think, for sure. I was in my senior year of University of Laverne, and I was graduating with my degree in sociology, and I needed an internship. And, I got there to the first day of the course thinking that, okay, they're going to help us look for organizations, they're going to help us. And it turns out I was the only person that showed up on the first day without an internship already secured. So I thought, I got to get something and got to get something quick. So I reached out to a bunch of organizations, and Foothill Family Shelter was the only one that answered my email. And that was 8 years ago, and the rest is history. I fell in love with the organization, and something that sort of found me when I needed it turned out to be my calling, and I couldn't picture myself doing anything else. So it's a unique story, but I really think it was meant to be.
That's awesome. And so what's your day-to-day like?
That's a good question. I get that question all the time, and I'm like, I don't think there's such thing as a day-to-day. It differs every single day, and I think that's just the nature of the nonprofit sector as a whole. I wouldn't have it any other way, though. I think doing the same thing every day personally would not be the best for me. I would say, the main things day to day is working on our campaigns. For example, we're having our big back to school bash coming up in August. And so right now that's my role to kind of develop and, get partners involved, doing a lot of outreach in the community, networking, really sharing our mission to people that are interested. I also am doing our marketing and communications. And so any outreach, external efforts to the community is my responsibility. So I guess if that's a way to describe day to day, that would be my day to day.
Yeah, for sure. When you're working in a nonprofit, as I well know, you're wearing not just many hats, but every hat pretty much all the time.
It's a full closet. So. It is a full wardrobe and closet of many hats, but a lot of times worn at the same time as well. So
exactly, because I think in the nonprofit sector, you just have to have a great team. It's got to be composed of a bunch of utility players, people who are just willing to kind of do whatever it takes, because obviously when you're at a nonprofit, it's all about the mission. And I feel like that mission, even though, there's a direction towards it, there are many different paths to get there. And you're always servicing the folks who you're working with and working for. They have different things that they are going to need all the time. So you need a great team who's versatile, who's receptive, who's flexible. And it just becomes more and more paramount and important to have as you kind of go on doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, our model is the same. We've developed over the years, but we have the same model and criteria and steps that every family has to take. But every family comes with their own story and their own personalities and history and everything. So every journey is different. But I think that's the nice thing about being a smaller organization is you can really tap into those individual experiences and really be with the families every step of the way and on their own unique journey. So yeah, to your point, I completely agree.
How many families do you tend to service at any given time, Deanna?
So we can have up to 26 families at our shelter at one time.
And you already mentioned about some of the requirements that are asked of folks in your service. What are some of the other details about being a part of Foothill Family Shelter?
So I'll start with the criteria of being eligible to apply for our program is number one, they have to be part of our service area. And so our service area encompasses 6 cities, starting from Pomona all the way to Rancho Cucamonga. So Pomona, Claremont, Montclair, Upland, Ontario, and Rancho Cucamonga. So they have to have some type of connection to those cities. It could be their current address. It could be their location of employment. It could be if a child attends school in one of those cities, just something to connect them from one of those cities. They cannot have more than 5 people in the family, and that's because our apartments are 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So occupancy limits, we can't have more than 5. They have to be drug and alcohol free. If they do have a history of substance abuse, it can't be for more than 6 months. So at least 6 months sober. And we do testing for that as well throughout the program. And lastly, they have to have some type of income. And this is a requirement because one of the requirements in our program is that they have to save 50% of their income. So any type of job and full-time employment is a requirement for our housing. And once they are accepted into their program, of course, we have the mandatory savings program. And so they save 50% of that income, and that gets put into a trust account that they will get back upon the completion of the program. And so this really helps them understand the importance of saving and why it's so important. And they also are required to attend Learn workshops. And so that's every 2 weeks, and we host it at our office. And we have different community leaders and professionals come and speak on a variety of topics, ranging from education, healthy eating. We have a lot of people from banks come and speak about saving and the importance of that. And so that's a requirement that they attend. We also have children's enrichment activities throughout the year. As I mentioned, we have our upcoming back to school event. We have a baseball game. We send them to a Quakes baseball game every summer. We have Christmas events. We have a spring event. We have a Halloween event. And so it's a lot to be in this program. It takes a lot. There are requirements, but we try to make it memorable for the kids as well. And we try to make it a wraparound event. We want them to be learning and changing their lives, but to also have some fun memories and learn on the way as well. So those are some of the main criteria that our case managers will work through with each family once they're accepted into the program.
What stuck out to me is save 50% of your income. I imagine that's a really, really difficult thing for, just about anybody to do.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like for folks? And also, are all 26 families, are they all being housed and supported by Foothill Family Shelter?
We have 3 phases of our housing program, our 120-day, our 1 year, and extended, which is up to 3 years of housing. Everyone has to start at our 120-day program. And so during that, families stay with us rent and utility free. So when they hear 50% of their income and they have to save,
Right.
The math doesn't math there. There's
Exactly.
how is that even possible? So what we do is we allow them to stay with us rent utility free. We cover all of the expenses. We also have our food pantry that we open up to them as well, so they can come shopping in our pantry once a week. And that has non-perishable foods. It has hygiene products, diapers and wipes, household cleaning products, things like that. We try to help and prevent any other additional expenditures throughout their stay to really help with the savings. And so it is possible. And so they just have to get behind that idea and just do it, because it is a model that works. And so during that time, we have families in 120 days save 2,000 to 3,000, even more, and they've never saved in their life. They've never had any additional money to their name. They're used to whatever comes in goes right back out for rent, food, whatever. So we're really teaching them the value of savings. And then when they go into the 1 year, and it's not a guarantee, but if they are successful in the 120 days and they just need more time, and if we have availability in the units, we can offer them the 1 year program. And at that point, 30% of their income goes to savings and 20% then goes to rent and utilities. So now it's starting to provide that stepping stone into the real world. In the real world, you're not going to live in rent and utility free housing. So it really starts to kind of get them used to, okay, now paying for their rent and utilities. And then if they still do great in the 1 year and they need more time and we have available units, we can offer them the extended housing, and that's for up to 3 years. And at that point, it's 10% of their income goes into savings, and then they pay a fixed rate for rent, and utilities, of course, is on their own to pay. So we really have a stepping stones model to get them back into the real world. If they just get behind that and know it's for a reason, and our case managers are here to help in any way just to save money, well, they will be successful.
I'm sure it's kind of a shock, and I would think it's also, of course, got to be a humbling experience for all parties involved to be linked up with Foothill Family Shelter. How are people or families the most successful within the program? Or are there any success stories that come to mind specifically? And what does it take to be successful within that program? Because it's a lot. There is a responsibility that you're putting on to people. I think that those programs, it's something we've experienced also, that ask people who are participating, who are benefiting from what you're offering, ask for something in return, ask for some community participation from those that they're servicing. because then they put some skin in the game rather than just get those free handouts, which I think there's something to be said about just kind of human nature when you're gifted something versus when you have to participate within that gift to continue to receive it.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there is, and we always try to describe our program as we're not a handout, we're a hand up. And I think families that are successful are the ones that really understand that and understand that we're not going to do the work for them. We always say we're never going to work harder than our clients. We will give them all the tools they need to be successful, but it's up to them to utilize those tools to have the success. And I think sometimes families, they meet all the criteria on paper, they look like a great fit, and they get there and they are just thinking that, okay, they have a safe place to live. They can kind of continue just doing whatever they want. And that's not our program. And it's for a reason. And that's another offshoot to another conversation. But, that's why we think that those models aren't as successful, because you can't just allow people to continue living their life with a roof over their head and think that things are going to change. It's a great step to changing lives, but it's not the whole solution. It's kind of a Band-Aid over a deeper wound. And so we have families that come to us and they just want to take advantage of all the perks, but they don't want to put in any of the work. And so, that does happen. But on the whole, families that really buy into that philosophy and understanding of why our program is, we're not having rules and criteria just to be mean or just to be controlling. It's all for a reason. And even, for example, the therapy, a lot of families, why do I have to go to therapy? Why is that a requirement? This is dumb. But the families that do it and they try it, their whole mindset changes. I mean, they grow and they're able to deal with the trauma. And, they don't realize that the struggle of homelessness or not knowing where your next meal is going to come or where your kids are going to sleep, that takes a toll on their mental health. And so really dealing with that trauma and being able to grow from it affects not only them, but their kids. So I really just think the families that understand that and realize that they have to put in the work, and when they work alongside of us, our organization that provides them with the resources, they can succeed. And you brought up a good question about a success story. The number one that comes into my mind was a family. They're currently in our extended housing program, and it's a single mother of 2 daughters, and she was escaping an abusive relationship. And so they came to us a few years ago. And she has 2 daughters, and one of them, I can't say her name, and she's now 18. And growing up, it was always unstable. They were moving from different relatives' houses, and she said, I never had a desk. Her desk wasn't a desk. It was 2 plastic boxes stacked on top of each other in a foldable chair. That was her life, just not having a steady foundation. And finally, they found Foothill Family Shelter. They moved in, and the mom was really working hard, furthering her education, and it had domino effects to her kids. And so Deborah, now living in our shelter, was able to go to the same school. People don't realize that when you're bouncing from different places, a lot of times that affects the kids and going to school. And I can't imagine just the stress of transferring from different schools and being so young. And so she was finally able to stay in the same school, and she joined debate, Latino Student Union, mock trial. She was involved. And she said this, and it struck me. She said, I had the freedom to be involved, not because I had to, but because I could. And just seeing her growth throughout the program was just amazing. And so now we're really, really excited to share that she was granted a full ride scholarship to Claremont McKenna College. And she graduated this year, and she will be starting in the fall, and she will be studying public policy and data science. And we are just so proud of her. And I really just think that this story encompasses what our shelter is about. We don't see housing as a roof over someone's head. We see it as the foundation for a child's entire future. And, stability, like in this case with Deborah and her family, creates the space for learning, growth, and the chance to thrive. And so I really just think that it's the perfect story to share what our program's about and just what can happen when a child has that stable foundation.
Absolutely. Because you need to have the very, very basics of the human condition satisfied before you can worry about anything. And that's something that I think a lot of people take for granted. A lot of people don't realize. A lot of people who were born into more fortunate situations just are completely unaware that if you don't have a stable home life, whatever that looks like, I mean, that could be, as you kind of mentioned, you could be in an abusive relationship. You could be going from place to place. You could not know where you're going to get your next meal from. If you don't have the stability, a domicile that is going to bring you peace and rest and that grounding place, then how could you possibly give a damn about literally anything else? Because if you just don't have the base, then what do you have to work off of? So you guys provide that for folks. And what could be more important than that?
And we'll have more of Dr. Atman's conversation with Deanna Alsdorf of the Foothill Family Shelter in Upland, California, next week on Educate Everyone. And now the Middle Tree Minute.
This is Kristen Hernandez, Middle Tree's executive assistant. Here's a quick tip. If your student is stuck on homework for more than 20 minutes, especially in elementary or middle school, hit pause. Homework is meant to reinforce learning, not cause meltdowns. Struggling too long can create frustration and burnout. Instead, jot a note to the teacher explaining where they got stuck. Support your students' efforts, not perfection. It shows them learning is a process and not a punishment. And that's the Middle Tree Minute.
And now a quick look into Dr. Atman's book, A Philosophical War. Joe, last time we were talking about how we just take consciousness for granted, that it's always been the way that it currently is. Question for you, is that really true?
We really don't know. However, what we can look at is that there are different ways that people interpret phenomena. And this is starting to kind of get to the core of the project of A Philosophical War, is that, first of all, and as we've kind of been doing, we need to look at what consciousness really and actually is. We take it for granted as though it's just something that we are, but I've kind of asked us to really examine truly and radically what consciousness actually is. What is the process of it? Because until we understand the nature of it, we really can't decipher truly anything. And this is, it's almost really pretty much the thesis of the book, is that we've made all these assumptions about phenomena, about who we are as human beings, about what the world is and our relationship to the world. And yet everything that we interact with and interpret is done through this lens of consciousness. And so we previously talked about how consciousness is kind of a vehicle on this road of reality, but we can also think of consciousness as something that filters our interaction with being, interaction with phenomena. And as we can also see that different cultures interpret things very differently. Different, of course, people, just in general, interpret things differently. You can have two witnesses to an event, and then when you talk to them about that event after the fact, they might have two very different interpretations of what actually occurred. I think we could argue quite easily that both individuals are conscious, but what is it about their capacity for consciousness, or the way that their consciousness is calibrated, that allowed them to have such varied interpretations or accounts of that event? So we have to really start to examine what consciousness is and how it works. I would argue before you do anything or make any actual decisions or conclusions about anything, which I will also kind of tease that making decisions and conclusions might be a really, really bad way to go about doing the business of being alive. But that's for a later conversation. But again, I think we need to step back, start to examine what is consciousness really and truly, and how do we, as not only individuals, but as human beings at large, utilize it.
Thank you for listening to Educate Everyone with Dr. Joseph Atman and Tammy Trujillo. Join us each week as we explore the inner workings of our own minds and the educational system which builds and supports it. Also, check out our website at middletree.org to see what opportunities Middle Tree's programs can offer you or your student. And join us on social media. If you have any questions you'd like Dr. Atman to answer, please leave them on a post or send us a message, and you may hear them answered on the next episode of Educate Everyone. Until then, thanks for tuning in.